hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to Seeds of Justice. This is series 3, and today we are doing episode 4. This episode is hosted by the Asian Research Institute for Environmental Law, and this particular episode is co-organized with ADB and UNEP, the United Nations Environment Programme. I'm moderating the discussion today again, and I am Georgina Lloyd, Regional Coordinator of Environmental Law and Governance of the UNEP Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. And similar to the last episode, today we continue to celebrate International Women's Day and discussing breaking the glass ceiling for women in environmental law. We're also tying this to the theme of International Women's Day this year, which is digital innovation and technology for gender equality. It represents a call to consider and address the disadvantages of women and girls in policymaking, better integrate women and girls into the digital era, and create a more secure, accessible, inclusive, and equitable digital world. This has linkages, as we discussed in the last episode, with the field of environmental law and how legal professionals engage with technology. And today I'm joined by two more incredible women who work in the field of environmental law. First, we have Dita Liliansa, who is an ocean law and policy research associate at the Center for International Law at the National University of Singapore. She earned her first law degree from the National University of Indonesia and later pursued a Master's of Law in Sustainable International Development from the University of Washington as a Fulbright Scholar. Dita has received recognition for her research, including being awarded second prize winner of the 2021 Asian Society of International Law Junior Scholar Award. Thank you so much for joining me, Dita. And I want to start with a question to you, which I have been posing to the other women who have joined the panel, which is what inspired you to work in the field of environmental law?
Hi, thank you, Georgie. I hope I'm audible because I feel like my video is frozen. But anyway, thank you for the question and thank you very much for this opportunity. So to answer your question, I don't think I have a straightforward answer, but I think I have to look back into what I did during law school. So when I was in law school, when my fellow batchmates pretty much spent their semester breaks interning at reputable law firms, I actually spent mine volunteering on marine environmental projects in Indonesia and Vietnam. So I started by working on a small fishing village in Semarang. So it's one of the cities in Indonesia which is heavily impacted by sea level rise. And then I also did volunteering in the northern parts of Vietnam. So that was, I would say, my first on-ground experience, witnessing the devastating effects of environmental degradation on coastal communities. So I think from then on, I kind of, this kind of spiral into something more. And it grew bigger as I worked on research projects on IUU fishing in Indonesia after I graduated from law school. And then now that I am in Singapore, I'm actually part of a project that aims to unpack ASEAN law and policy for the protection of the marine environment. So, but yeah, I think more than that, I see the scarcity of marine environmental lawyers in Indonesia, a nation that controls, vast ocean space and a major beneficiary of the law of the sea regime. But, that kind of drove me to carry on with this field and to fill the gap.
Amazing. I got goosebumps when you were first talking about that, because I really believe that experiential learning in environmental law is critical to build environmental lawyers and to build passion to address environmental law. And I've heard so many stories of young environmental lawyers being influenced by experiences that they've had with communities who are being impacted by environmental harm and seeing the consequences of environmental degradation firsthand. So it really resonated with me, your experience. That's unbelievable and wonderful. And I want to talk some more about it in a little bit. But I'm also joined today by Grita Anindarini or Oninda. And Ninda is a program director for the Indonesian Center for Environmental Law. Ninda is currently contributing to research and advocacy related to energy and mining governance, climate change issues, and environmental administrative law. And in this regard, Ninda is active in conducting legal research and drafting several regulations in the field of environment and natural resources, both at the national and regional levels. Ninda also teaches environmental law and energy law and is involved in capacity building for law enforcers and the community. It's wonderful to have you here joining us. And so, what has inspired you, Ninda, to work in the field of environmental law?
Yeah, thank you, Georgie. Just like Dita, I think. So this is a personal question for me as well. Like, I had tuberculosis, TBC, once in my teenager lives, and at that time, the doctor said that maybe there is a correlation between air pollution and your disease at the time. So I know how it is, how it feels to have some kind of disease because of environmental degradation issues. So then I joined law schools, and I knew that law actually law instruments can play vital role in addressing environmental degradation issues, like particularly in addressing air pollution issues. So at that time, I chose the concentration of environmental law in my bachelor, and then I choose as well to work in environmental field, and then time goes by. We've done many advocacy, and I note that women and girls is the most impacted and most vulnerable people, vulnerable communities impacted by the environmental degradation and environmental pollutions. These personal reasons come back again. So I literally would like to, take move together and work to address these issues.
Yeah, that's so important as well, that additional layer of looking at the intersecting and compounding vulnerabilities and risks of certain groups to environmental harm. And that's something that that environmental law can address. You know, we know that environmental harm affects everyone, but it doesn't affect everyone equally, right? And that there are certain groups that are more vulnerable to the impacts of environmental harm. And also understanding that women and girls are one of the most impacted groups is incredibly important for the current topic, where we're looking at International Women's Day, and how it's also, I think, why it is so important to have environmental lawyers in the field who understand and can provide suggestions and solutions for these issues that maybe in other areas there could be gender blind legal responses to environmental harm and degradation. So this is what I wanted to explore more with both of you. How do we encourage environmental lawyers to join the environmental law field? And what do you think are some of the barriers? Because, I mean, you mentioned before, Dita, that there aren't many environmental ocean lawyers and not many women working in the field. So what do you think are some of the barriers that women are facing in getting into this field?
Yeah, I think there could be many reasons, but what I can think of, first of all, when I did the volunteering works in Semarang and Vietnam, I was fortunate that it was kind of like a paid volunteering. So, which is not something that is available or accessible to all. Um, I think that's one. And then second of all, I think with raising awareness, that would also help attracting more, not only women but also men into this field. And I think I've seen development, at least in my law school, in my first law school, that now they have an environmental law society. So, which I think is a good initiative that uh, you know kind of like develop students' capacity and their I think their interest as well in the context of environmental law field. And I think mentoring is also important, especially for women. I think through mentoring, you would provide kind of like more visibility to women, by providing opportunities, give them platform to speak. Pretty much something like we're doing right now, with the Seeds of Justice. So because really it's all about visibility and making sure that more women are aware that this could be something that they can contribute on, and we need to address that access to actually to this field.
Yeah, and have you found that as well, that that visibility of women in the field is important?
Yes, it is. But let me try. Yes, actually, I've seen progress in recent years toward equal opportunities for women and men in environmental law field. I can see from my organization, ICEL. Right now, ICEL has more than half of our researchers are women actually, and this is a proof how the mentoring, like Dita said, mentoring session has been successful to to give support to them to pursue their career or their focus in environmental law. And I also note that right now there are so many organizations, even grassroots organizations, that already providing kind of legal education or capacity building for grassroots women, more specifically impacting girls and impacting women, so they can speak up loudly about how these environmental issues, these projects, this plan could impact to our livings. And this is so so good because throughout these years, just a little story. Throughout these years, ICEL's developing a tools actually called by gender impact assessment. So we develop a tool to to assess whether the environmental impact assessment already internalizing gender mainstreaming issues. And we found out that throughout these years there is little or even not or even zero participation from women and girls, even girls, during the environmental impact assessment public participation process. And it makes that even under the EIA documents, there is no comprehensive assessment on what are the impacts or risks of these projects to women specifically or to the girls, even when they are what's a vulnerable communities. So if we have many women, many girls working or advocating in this field, we can, have like this sense about raising the awareness and raising the sense to all the people about what are the impacts of these specific projects, what are the impacts of these specific plans, and how women and girls could contribute to the projects, to the plans, etc.
Such an important point, and ensuring, again, it's sort of understanding that women in the field can recognize some of these vulnerabilities and concerns and advocate for inclusion into EIA processes or other processes. And it's fantastic to hear that ICEL has introduced gender impact assessment and supporting that through the EIA public participation processes. One of the other things that was mentioned was, the importance of also providing paid opportunities for women. And I think this is not only for women, of course, paid opportunities to engage with and experience environmental law is important for all lawyers. But it can be particularly important to ensure that there are spaces available for women and girls through paid internships, paid opportunities, to then receive that mentoring that is so important. And this idea of having mentors that lift up and provide space for women was also raised in our last episode. So I think that is very important. I want to bring technology into the conversation, because technology can both be a barrier but also an enabler for women and girls. And we can talk about this even in the context of public participation processes, right? That possibly access to technology could further support engagement of women and girls. But at the same time, it can be a barrier, because we know that there are huge discrepancies between access to internet between men and women, and also about technological skills and capacity being much higher in men than it is in women. And so I was wondering whether you thought that there were any particular barriers linked to technology for women and girls in the field of environmental law, and indeed whether there are any opportunities there. So I don't know, Ninda, did you want to start?
Yes. Yeah. So I think I think we all know that there is a large gap in women and girls' digital adoption and use compared to men and boys. Like I've just read some articles that noted that internet penetration rate for adult women is just like 41%, and compared to over 50% for the man. And even women in developing countries do not own mobile phones. There are million adult women do not own mobile phones, and I think this is a large barrier because you know that all informations now are available online, or not only informations but also just following my following the last question about last answer, I mean about impacted women. Right now, all informations of the planned project, upcoming projects, will be provided via government website or government platform, which means women and girls or other vulnerable people should, have internet access to know what are upcoming projects that may impact our living beings in the near futures. But these digital barriers are really really huge challenges that we are facing right now. But I have to note that raise the awareness that these are issues is really important, because to date I note that there is very little research on gender differences and gender inequalities in digital access, and more rare about research on digital access for girls, for children under the age of 18, for example. So making more research available, doing more research available is important to raise this awareness. And then I also note that actually it's not only about the access, it's not only about the digital literacy that need to be addressed, but the online safety as well. Like I even read that there are some issues that some women even discourage for being online or active in online after being harassed by online, but in online media platform. So they prefer to use to use offline platform other than online. So how we can ensure and provide safe place and online safety for women to serving in online platforms becomes important as well.
And that's really important. If more and more of the public participation processes that are central to environmental law and upholding access to information, upholding public participation, and including actually more and more digital technology being utilized for access to justice as well. Those core procedural rights that underpin environmental law, it is essential that we address the unequal access and literacy to use those digital technologies for women and girls. Dita, have you found similar things in the work that you've done?
I think I'm quite fortunate with my own organization because my director is a woman and my co-head for ocean law and policy is also a woman. They're both my role models. So I think, it also depends between organizations. Some organizations are very much ahead in terms of, including women in terms of the digital opportunities, but then others may be far behind. So I think with that being said, I think there's still a lot of gender bias in terms of, who can and cannot do anything related to tech. But then, it relates to how much access we give. Again, it's about access and opportunities that we give to women to actually learn more about technology and have space to actually, excel in the field. And otherwise, it will just become, another boys' club that, perpetuating the male-dominated society that are, apparent in many fields. And again, I think, making sure that everyone is involved, giving equal opportunities to both men and women would be a key here. And in fact, I think organizations really hold, the most important role here because they're the one with the power to actually make meaningful changes, at least in their own organization. I think having a leader who understands, there's this disparity between men and women in accessing opportunities and in, digital literacy, then I think that awareness itself is useful, because that would affect how they make decision in their own organization and how they make sure that everyone has equal opportunities.
I think those two words that you use, access and opportunity, are the key here. And we have heard for many years this concept of a glass ceiling in the law field, and that women find it very difficult to break through that glass ceiling and get to more senior positions within the law field. And this is shifting, and you hear more about the shattering of the glass ceiling, but it comes down often, I think, to those 2 points. Are there opportunities, and are women being able to access those potential opportunities? So it does come down, I agree with you, Dita, that it does come down often to organizational policies and also to champions within an organization who recognize the vital and positive contribution that women in senior leadership positions provides to the field and to the organization itself. In your careers, have you experienced any limitations linked to a perceived glass ceiling? Or do you think now that this is something that we have gone beyond in environmental law? Maybe Dita, I can start with you because you mentioned actually your organization at the moment it has some incredible female mentors.
Yeah, I think on that note, I have, to really thank my director and my co-head, also my colleagues who are mostly women actually. And because, this is, because my director is really it's really focal about making sure that we have, let's say, every time we have a seminar, a conference, or a roundtable, we always make sure we have equal representation of women and men speakers, which um, which is really great because we know that there are a lot of capable women out there. It's just that over time, often they are overlooked or they're not given, equal opportunities to showcase their accomplishments or their capabilities. So really, it's about providing them platform, giving them uh, the actual, platform to give their voices. Um, in fact, I think it was last month. CIL held a roundtable on women in international law and diplomacy, and we met a lot of amazing, accomplished women in Singapore throughout many fields, and some of them, and or maybe many of them, are actually in environmental law fields. And we discussed it that women bring in very unique qualities to the field actually. So if organizations are able to embrace those unique qualities like active listening or consensus building, I think that would really help out in raising this awareness. And during that roundtable as well, we noticed that we rarely hear women say, "Oh, I'm really good at this," or like really vocal about their accomplishment. They're more modest in a way compared to the men counterparts. So I think building self-confidence as well, having mentors that provide the safe space, and then provide them with opportunities would really help in making sure or encouraging women to be more proactive. Don't let self-imposed limitations hold us back. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Yeah, no, some absolute pearls of wisdom there. And I think a very easy thing that organizations can do at this stage is just say no more medals. As you said, ensuring that there is equal participation and representation by women in all of the panel discussions, because women are there. They're just often not self-promoting to the extent which men are. And that comes back to what we were discussing about visibility and the importance of creating spaces so that women who are excellent in the fields can have that visibility. Ninda, over to you.
Yeah, actually, just same as Dita, like I thankful for working environment in ISL because we have like informal, which soon to be formal SOP, standard operation procedures about gender equality, not only in work, not only in event like no more medals. Yes, we've already implemented that as well. Like we always encourage, even we have like conditions when we already asking specifically asking for send woman speakers, but these institutions somehow still send the man speakers. Like we always encourage this to encourage more women participations in the process. And we have also considered about the gender issues in the communications and publications, gender sensitive issues in the communications and publications. So how the communication strategy should be, should be very focused on these issues. And as I mentioned before, like ICEL researchers, half are women. Like I'm very thankful for this because we have like joint what's that joint acceptance and something like that. Like we have to create safe environment to each others, create safe working environment for each others. And so yes, I think it's already yeah, it's an ongoing process, but we've already started to internalize this in our organizations, policy making organizations, procedures, etc.
It is really heartening to hear that for both of your organizations that these policies are in place, that there are processes to really mentor and support women professionals in the field. And I do think that this is becoming more and more common, but it is continues to be important to provide those opportunities for women. I want to close this session because we're coming towards the end with a question to each of you on what piece of advice or suggestions would you give to support female professionals in the environmental law field? What piece of advice would you give either to an organization or to a young environmental lawyer who is just starting their career? Dita, do you want to go first?
Uh, sh- sure. I think my first piece of advice is, don't be too modest about your accomplishments. I feel like a lot of women are really, like thinking really hard before they actually market themselves. Like they tend to set up their own limitations. That's from my own personal observations and my own experience as well. I think women need to be more proactive in pursuing opportunities, taking on challenges, and setting an example for other women as well. So again, don't let self-imposed limitations hold us back. And I think self-confidence really is important, and that can be built through mentorship, to I think from our fellow women, like women support women. I think this, space about, women supporting women is very critical. And it's also a knowledge sharing platform as well, and how, we as women can overcome any challenges that we have. So I think this can become like kind of like a support system, and really surround yourself with supportive mentors and colleagues who understand our unique abilities but also unique circumstances, because women go through different life stages like motherhood, and it's still like a touchy subject, like maternity issue, paternity issues are still touchy subjects. So having supportive mentors, colleagues, and especially supportive organizations that understand this would be tremendously important, in actually not only in starting a career in environmental law or in any field, but also to actually move up the ladder, to eventually get a leadership position. I think that is very critical, because I'm very, very, I'm very optimistic that there are a lot of women entering the field, but I'm more worried about how many are those, are actually in the leadership positions. So it's sometimes there's this disparity between, the entry level jobs and then the senior level positions. Like there's a huge gap in terms of gender representation on that as well.
Yeah, really great points. Thank you, Dita. Ninda, what is the advice that you would give?
Yeah. Firstly, knowing what you want. This is the first important thing that you have to note. And knowing what are the barriers first. We somehow we know that somehow we feel that okay, I want this, I want that, but we just don't know what are the barriers to to getting this and to getting that, and believe that there are many opportunities available to achieve that, like and just open surrounding yourself with the communities in the same field. And I do believe that there are many communities out there focused on environmental issues, because this is not only not emerging issues, but already an emergency issues. And surrounding yourself with that people, so the most important informations, the pathways to go there, and etc. And I also would like to know sorry, I also would like to note about creating safe space for women, because we're not right we note right now that there are many numbers of women environmental human rights defender who is being threatened because they are voicing their voice loudly to defend their good and healthy environment, but still, you know, minimum concern about this. So if we would like to, support or to support to push more women working in this field, and we as a woman, and not only women but also men as well, all of us should also think about the vulnerability and provide the safe space for women to working in this field as well.
Yeah, I think the points that both of you have raised are really critical and really great advice. I mean, what I have taken away from what you've shared is the importance of confidence, of leaning on those mentors and understanding the unique values that women are bringing. Ensuring that there is participation, opportunities for women, that women have access to mentors, that they have access to the field. And finally, the point, Linda, that you raised about ensuring that there are safe spaces for women, because we're not going to really leverage those opportunities unless the spaces are safe, and unless the spaces also recognize the commitments that often women have, that men often aren't expected to have the same level of commitments to, say, family commitments, and even care commitments for parental care and those sorts of things. So we need to understand those particular expectations that are placed on women in order to ensure that opportunities are actually accessible for women, and indeed that they are safe. So thank you both so much. A lot of things to consider and think about. And I think with all of that insight, we could develop some really fantastic organizational policies within the environmental law field. So finally, let me say thank you to Dita, thank you to Ninda, and this will be the closing of this episode of Seeds of Justice.
Thank you, Georgie. Thank you, Dita. Thank you all.
Thank you all.